Good morning, everybody. Welcome to CNF Talks. It's a great pleasure to have with me today David Avery-Gee, who's a partner at Vial. David's going to be speaking at our M&A Summit on the 24th of November in London. David's the co-managing partner of Vial's London office and leads its M&A practice in London. He's one of the most well-known strategic advisors on boardroom issues to corporate clients, and he has extensive experience advising on some of the most high-profile M&A transactions. David is regularly recognized and ranked as a top deal maker for European M&A transactions. David, welcome.
Hey, Maurice, it's nice to speak to you, and thank you very much for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Now, you're moderating our opening panel at the summit, which is looking at global M&A outlook for the next 12 months or so, and who or what is driving that deal activity in the current economic and geopolitical environment. Could you perhaps give us a sneak preview of where you think this conversation might go?
Yeah, sure. So I'm actually really looking forward to it, Maurice. It should be a really interesting discussion. I think the M&A environment at the moment is super complex. On the one hand, you have very ripe conditions for M&A. You have the stock market an all-time high. You have generally reasonable economic growth. You have private equity with all their dry powder. You have lots of assets for sale. You have the whole AI boom going on. So it's a terrific environment, but nevertheless, there is something holding people back from M&A. Probably the M&A market's not where we thought it was going to be at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And so I'm really looking forward to the discussion and to kind of understanding what people think is driving that. What is the negative? What are the negative factors in the market?
Do you think that one of those negative aspects, certainly in relation to the UK, is the forthcoming budget on November the 26th, and perhaps people wanting to wait and see what happens?
Yeah, I think so a bit. I mean, there's definitely no doubt that there is a kind of negative sentiment about the UK and its fiscal position, and the investment background to the UK. I think people are waiting to see what's in the budget. They are waiting to see how our books are going to be balanced. So it definitely does weigh on M&A in the UK. But remember, a lot of UK listed companies, their businesses aren't UK centric.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a factor, but it's not the only thing. And for me, as I said, I think that it is a complex M&A environment, and I think that the geopolitical situation is also something that people worry about. So there are a few things, but certainly the budget in the UK is something we're all waiting for with bated breath.
And what do you think about the recent regulatory shifts and market reforms? Have those influenced deal making, particularly in the UK and Europe?
Yeah, look, I think certainly the shift from the CMA, we've seen a notable shift in their attitudes, and certainly being a lot more flexible and proportionate. That's definitely very, very welcome. I think the government policy on AI investment, for example, I think they're in a little bit of a flux on what they're doing on energy. Certainly the nuclear plans and the spending on infrastructure is good. I think that there's a little bit of change on what's going on in the North Sea, and that could open on M&A activity. So governments play a huge role in M&A, both in a positive way and also in a negative way. I mean, there's a lot more focus on in Europe on government interests and on defensive positions as well. So it works both ways, but certainly in the UK, I think the regulatory shift has been very positive.
You mentioned earlier, David, the dry powder amongst the private equity firms. To what extent is pressure from their limited partners driving activity and exits? Are they all bolting for the door and wanting to realize some cash?
Yeah, we talk about this all the time. While we have one of Europe's absolute leading PE practices, and we talk about a lot the fact that there is so much dry powder and that money needs to be spent. Yeah, we've been talking about that for a number of years. But the money's there, and it does need to be spent, but it needs to be spent in a sensible way. And I think that complexity that I was mentioning earlier is impacting on that, and that's something that I'm really looking forward to discussing at the conference and getting people's views on.
And looking to the future, as confidence grows and capital becomes more accessible, do you expect more mega deals, or are we going to see continued mid-market growth?
Yeah. So I think that, well, first of all, I'm quite loath to make any predictions, so that'll probably be wrong. But I think that this complex M&A environment and this complex economic environment is good for mega deals. In the UK, mega deals are kind of few and far between, but M&A is certainly a way that companies can transform themselves, and we'll see. But I think we will see some very large transactions over the course of the next 12 months.
Final question, David, if I may. The governor of the Bank of England yesterday gave warnings that there may be a major downturn on its way. Do you share that view on economic sentiment?
I think that's a market-driven thing. I think he was really referring to, I think, the AI bubble.
Yeah.
And there is absolutely no doubt that the all-time record highs has been driven, that we're seeing in stock markets, have been driven by sentiment around AI, but not just AI. I think, if you go back to Liberation Day, which I think was April the 2nd of this year, there was serious worries about the impact of tariffs, and they probably haven't been as bad. So I think it's not just AI driven. There are certainly concerns around that, and from my own perspective, I actually I'm someone who thinks that AI is an amazing tool, and I think it is going to transform economy. So I'm not in.
I agree.
That it's such a bubble, but we have to take heeding those warnings seriously. And when the governor of the bank comes out, that obviously impacts upon sentiment and the investment environment.
Yes, no, I agree with you. I think AI is transformative, and I do think it's like the fourth industrial revolution. But fingers crossed that it turns out that way. For our viewers, if you'd like to hear more on these topics and the changing world of M&A, please do come along to the event, the M&A Summit, on the 24th of November in London, where you'll hear from David and many others. If you'd like further information on that, please do go to our website, www.cityandfinancial.com. David, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, great to speak with you, Maurice, and see you in a few weeks' time.